For a long time, I genuinely thought Patrick had life all figured out. I mean, look at him. The guy's just completely unbothered. And when you compare that to the rest of Bikini Bottom, a town full of chaotic maniacs, Patrick almost looks like the healthiest one in the room. It's even tempting to see it as a kind of wisdom. Like maybe Patrick is this accidental Taoist, the do-nothing guy, the one who doesn't force meaning where there isn't any. And that interpretation feels nice, comforting even. But the more I tried to actually follow Patrick through the show, like really follow him episode to episode, I don't think that's it. I don't think Patrick is calm because he understands life. So instead of asking, is Patrick secretly wise, I started asking a different question. If Patrick really has a philosophy, what is it? And more importantly, what does it cost? Now, before I start picking Patrick apart like this, I should probably be fair and explain where the whole Patrick is a Taoist idea even comes from. Because of course, it doesn't come out of nowhere. For one, Patrick doesn't have a job. He lives under a rock, with furniture mostly made from sand. He has no ambition, and definitely no long-term plan. Most of the time, he's either sleeping, eating, watching TV, or just existing, laying on top of his rock.
What are you doing?
Nothing. I just finished.
Yeah, chill might be an understatement at this point. But compared to Squidward, who's often miserable because he wants more out of life, and SpongeBob, who's stressed because he wants to do everything perfectly, Patrick doesn't seem bothered by any of it. The contrast is very strong on Conch Street. Also, every now and then, the show reinforces the idea of Patrick being the chill guy. There are lots of moments where he just enjoys the sun. He wants everyone to take it easy.
It's okay, Rocky. You go when you feel like it.
But there are also moments where he shows his intelligence, if he wants to.
We could filter the CO2 through our ballast tanks, refire the engines, and ride the shockwave out of here. You could just stick any old dollar bill up on the wall. No one would even know the difference.
So yeah, we get this sense of Patrick as this weirdly enlightened figure. And for a while, I bought into that. I mean, honestly, part of me wanted that to be true. Because if Patrick is truly achieving peace, then maybe peace really is as simple as doing less, caring less, and just letting things go. But the more I sat with that idea, the more I realized that something felt off. There are a lot of times where he doesn't even seem aware of what he just did. And mind you, there's a big distinction between letting bad thoughts go and never holding on to any thoughts at all. And once you start paying attention to that distinction, this whole Patrick as a role model thing starts getting a lot harder to defend. One of the first doubts, for me at least, came from Big Pink Loser. In the episode, Patrick sees that SpongeBob has a room full of trophies. He realizes he doesn't have any, and it crushes him. And the whole episode is him following SpongeBob to Krusty Krab in an effort to get a trophy for himself. So I remember thinking, okay, hold on. If Patrick's whole thing is letting go, why does this bother him this much? And yeah, the resolution makes it even weirder because Patrick ends up getting a trophy for doing nothing longer than anyone else.
Doing absolutely nothing longer than anyone else? Patrick!
But then again, this episode happened really early in season 1, so maybe it was the trigger that began the journey for perfecting his philosophy. Probably. However, as the show progressed, lots of different patterns started showing up. In some episodes, Patrick creates emotional consequences without even realizing it. Dumped is one of the earliest examples. The whole episode revolves around SpongeBob spiraling because Gary would rather hang out with Patrick. And Patrick, being Patrick, doesn't approach SpongeBob and just tries to talk it out. He never really tries to return Gary. If anything, Patrick tells SpongeBob to let go of Gary. It's only ironic considering how broken he is when he realizes that the entire time, Gary just wants his cookies.
I thought what we had was special!
Then you get Something Smells, where he basically tries to help SpongeBob cope with his ugliness, only to be furious later when he's the one framed for being ugly. By the way, I made a whole video about that episode as well. Make sure you check it out if you want to have your full sniff at the story. There's also Rockabye Bivalve, where he becomes an insufferable father figure to Junior and an abusive husband to SpongeBob, which I also made a whole video about. Then of course we can't forget the famous Stuck in the Ringer, where SpongeBob's stuck and Patrick's contribution is basically, "Cool, let's make this permanent," with Forever Glue. and then gaslight everyone, including SpongeBob, when he gets called out. So, in my experience, after covering so many episodes of Patrick being a jerk, or where he becomes the source of the problem, his behavior clearly doesn't sound like acceptance, let alone letting go. But I want to be clear here. Even though Patrick acts like a total jerk for some of these episodes, I still don't think he has cruel intentions. If anything, Patrick has this habit of overwriting reality with whatever interpretation pops into his head first, and then completely committing to it.
The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma.
Then again, I understand some part of this philosophy idea comes from the fact that there are a lot of theories about Patrick actually being a secret genius. It's a common belief at this point, and I even made a full video covering that topic as well. So, with that in mind, there's also a good chance that Patrick acting like a jerk is only a part of his effort to avoid being seen as smart. The guy is pretending so hard to be dumb that the chaos is just collateral damage from a higher understanding. But I also dare to argue it has nothing to do with Patrick's philosophy as a person, since it was two completely different subjects. Yeah, I know, it's getting confusing at this point, but just bear with me for another minute. My point is that being cognitively smart, emotionally smart, and socially or contextually smart are completely different things. The easiest way to understand it is to look at Patrick Smartpants, where Patrick suddenly becomes smart and can understand science and art better than anyone, including Sandy and Squidward, respectively. But he's also proven to still be a jerk in the episode, dismissing Sandy's analysis and then calling Squidward talentless just because he knows better. He can't even enjoy hanging out with SpongeBob anymore because they're no longer thinking on the same wavelength. So yeah, his brain turns on, but his ability to handle people doesn't improve at all. Which is where I have to admit something kind of annoying. He still doesn't know how to behave and please people, even if it's only for the sake of being friendly. Yeah, it's what you would call unapologetically himself, but come on. Insulting everyone is not part of Taoism, or even being wise in general. So I think Patrick isn't calm because he's enlightened. Maybe he's calm because he's just light, mentally, morally, narratively. Like, nothing really sticks long enough to become a burden. And if that sounds like I'm roasting him, I'm sorry. But I'm not done yet, because then if Patrick doesn't hold any emotional weight, who absorbs the weight that he doesn't carry? And oh boy, once I think about that question, lots of things start popping up in my head. I mean, think about it. Patrick's way of living doesn't exist in isolation. He's not some kind of hermit living in a cave, he lives next to someone. And that someone is SpongeBob and Squidward. Now, if we think of an episode where Patrick acts restlessly, causes a lot of trouble, and gets no consequences, what would it be? One of the answers is Rule of Dumb. In the episode, Patrick becomes king because someone from the ministry says he's a long-lost descendant of the royal family. And he doesn't even wait a minute to start making selfish rules, just dictating anything that makes sense to him at that moment. He refuses to pay for his patty buffet, he starts taking everyone's belongings, and when everyone starts to turn on him, he tells SpongeBob to attack them. Throughout the episode, Patrick never second-guesses his decisions. Not a single thought of, oh, maybe this isn't working. Maybe I'm being cruel. What's worse is that after it's revealed that Gary is the true heir to the throne, Patrick never meets any consequences. He never has to work or pay for anything that he's taken, and he never has to fix Squidward's home. Now he's just enrolled to serve Gary. What's with that? Squidward gets punished when he makes the tiniest mistake. And that's when I realized it's been kind of a theme with Patrick since the beginning. Classic episodes like I'm with Stupid, they aren't much different. He deliberately shames SpongeBob in front of his parents just so he can further prove I'm smarter than him. Patrick never once realizes that he's being a jerk, let alone considering SpongeBob's feelings. At this point, I could make a whole list of episodes with Patrick being mean to others and not realizing it. And again, I have to point out, these episodes aren't about Patrick planning to be evil or cruel. In fact, I think his selfless tendencies came as a result of his unaccountability, right? I mean, most of us would have done the same. It's really easy to act selfishly when no one ever calls you out on it. Maybe Patrick just doesn't understand the concept of responsibility because nobody ever held him accountable. That's just crazy. So after all that, Calling this a philosophy already feels a bit generous. In practice, what Patrick is actually doing is way simpler than that. Patrick lives almost entirely in the now, just whatever is directly in front of him at the moment. If something feels good right now, he does it. If something feels bad, he resents it. Never once is there any long-term thinking, like, how will this affect people later? Or, should I even be doing this? That's just it. That's his philosophy, if you even want to call it that. After all, anxiety lives in the future, guilt lives in the past. Meanwhile, Patrick barely spends time in either, which fortunately has always worked out for him in Bikini Bottom. In real life, not so much. But at the same time, I don't want to be unfair to Patrick either, because this is a cartoon world, and Hillenburg designed it that way on purpose. Patrick is entertaining because he is that carefree. He's the goofy friend you want around when everything feels too serious. Judging him like a real human being just makes us miss the point. No one in real life could actually live like Patrick and get away with it, but that doesn't mean there's nothing worth learning here, because parts of his worldview are appealing for a reason. Not overthinking everything is a good instinct to some extent. Honestly, a lot of people could benefit from being a little more Patrick-like in those ways. The problem is, Patrick doesn't just let go of the meaningless stuff. He lets go of everything, including responsibility, awareness, and the emotional impact that he has on other people. Meanwhile, philosophy doesn't work that way. You don't get to reset every episode. People remember what you did yesterday. Relationships carry history. And if you don't deal with the weight that you create, someone else has to suffer from it, like SpongeBob. So if you really wanted to turn Patrick's worldview into something healthy, something you could actually live by, you'd have to change one rule. Just one. You're allowed to let go only after you've acknowledged what you're letting go of. That's the missing step that Patrick skips every time. Real peace comes from knowing what matters and choosing not to be crushed by it. Oh, I just realized, is that why he's such a tempting character to project wisdom onto in the first place? Because when you're tired, overwhelmed, or burnt out, someone like Patrick who is never accountable looks very tempting indeed. But remember, freedom that only happens when someone else absorbs the cost isn't really freedom. It's just a very comfortable blind spot. And in my experience, it's easier to see your blind spots when you stop for a second and look back at everything you just did. Or even more interesting, what Squidward did. Because unlike Patrick, Squidward carries everything that happened in the past. In another episode, I broke down the one story that quietly solves the Squidward paradox and why he is the way he is today, even in a cartoon world that keeps resetting every episode. If you want to see Squidward's paradox and how it affects his career, that's the video to watch next. I'll see you on the next dive.